Hey everybody, it's Angie and welcome to Hot and Flashy. In today's Foundation Friday for over 50s, we're going to be taking a look at a new foundation from YSL. It's the All Hours Foundation. Now this is yet another one of these 24-hour wear matte full coverage foundations. The industry seems to be pumping these out these days. There's a new one from Milk, from Bare Minerals. So let's get into this. I have put it through the Angie test. I've worn it for 3 days already. Today is the 4th day. All right, this guy retails for $58. I usually say right after this for an ounce, but no, this actually is only 0.84 ounces. So for the ounce by ounce price is $69 for an ounce. So, I mean, the thing does cost $58, so that's what you'll spend on it, but you're not getting a full ounce of foundation. It does come in 22 different shades. The shade I got it in is B40 Sand, and I gotta say I was really happy with this shade range. They don't skew terribly yellow like a lot of the foundations are these days. The packaging is a heavyweight frosted glass bottle. It does contain a pump, which is great. This one does contain a sunscreen. It's an SPF 20 from Hot&Flashy. This is a water, silicone, and alcohol based foundation. Those are the first 3 ingredients in that order, so alcohol very high on the list. If you're not into things that have drying alcohol, then you may not be interested in this one because it is so high on the list. But I gotta say, my Holy Grail foundation, the Chanel Perfection Lumiere Velvet, also does contain alcohol, and it is fairly high on the list, sitting at position number 5. The other thing that sits high on the ingredient list in this is fragrance. It's right in the middle. This one does have kind of a light, fresh scent that I actually don't really mind. It's not flowery, it's not perfumey, it's not heavy. It smells summery, really lightweight, kind of like iced tea, which is interesting. I don't know if I'm just projecting that on it, because when I read the ingredients, I saw this one ingredient that was a really long, compound word that I couldn't even pronounce. And when I looked it up, it was basically kombucha. You guys drink kombucha? I haven't had it yet, but it has live bacteria in it that are supposed to be really good for your gut health. Now, what it's doing in foundation, I don't know. And they can't keep the bacteria alive in something like this anyway, so it's not like it's going to have a live kind of probiotic effect on the surface of your face. The other thing that it has in there is shea butter and linalool, citric acid, but I was thinking maybe the shea butter would help to offset the alcohol. Their application recommendations are to use a dime size amount with your fingers for light coverage. For buildable coverage, they recommend a Beauty Blender sponge, and for heaviest coverage, they recommend using 2 drops, which I think they probably meant 2 pumps, on a paddle brush. I applied it with all 3 methods. The fingers was just okay for me. I gotta say, it did kind of skip over like pores and wrinkles. You had to really make sure to rub it in. Sometimes the blending was not perfect with that, but overall it actually went on fairly well with the fingers. It does stay tacky and workable for about 15 minutes after you apply it, so you can build it up. It does blend beautifully into itself. I really love the finish on this. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so beautiful on the skin. I can't say that it actually blurs my pores or blurs my wrinkles in any way, and the wear you'll get out of it will largely depend on what you use with it. Just using it with a sunscreen and no primer and no setting powder, it was pretty much worn off after about 9 hours. It kind of wore off just around my nose and my chin and my T-zone, and I was a little shiny throughout the day, so it didn't really keep me matte throughout the day on its own, and it didn't really wear that well on its own. But then the next day I put a primer with it, and I gotta say the primer really improved the wear. That was the Algenist Pore Corrector Anti-Aging Primer. I used a brush on one side, I used a sponge on the other. It worked great with this primer, which is a water and silicone based primer. I think it looks really, really nice. It played very well with the cream contour and the cream blush that I put on. I also powdered my T-zone. I think it looks good. Let me check for tack. It still is slightly tacky, but I'm thinking it is going to dry back in a couple more minutes, so we'll check on it throughout the day. I'll see you back here or outside at the eclipse in 5 hours. We're going to do the kitchen light and the outdoor light for the 5 hours today. So here's the YSL All Hours Foundation. I think it's looking really good still. I don't feel like I'm getting shiny in my T-zone at all, which is amazing for 5 hours. It hasn't completely blurred my skin, which at 55, I can't really expect makeup to do that. I was just running errands today. I went to my P.O. box and there were a couple of surprises there. Oh, look who's here. She seems to be wanting something. Okay, now let's go outside where my other little buddy's waiting for me. Hi, cutie. What you doing? Aw, you want a belly rub? We don't have super bright sunshine today. Today was the eclipse, but being in New England, we didn't really have much here. It barely even got dark. It was just like a semi-overcast day. So let's take a look. This stuff actually looks natural on the skin. It looks lightweight on the skin. It doesn't look like a mask of makeup. Even when you put powder on over it, it doesn't look like powdery and masky. So can you tell? I am kind of digging this one, you guys. I am really, really happy with it so far. Oh my gosh, who's at the door? Be right back. Okay, so it was the mailman, just had to sign for a package. Where was I? I came back for a 10-hour check-in that day, and it was only worn off slightly around my nose and some spots on my forehead, but it had gathered up at the sides of my nose. It looked definitely shinier on the second day than it did any other day that I wore it, and so, you know, for me, the Alginist primer is not a perfect primer. I keep trying to like this one, and then after I use it, I always put it back in the drawer, and then I forget why I didn't like it, and then I get it out again, and then I use it, and then I'm like, oh, that's not really that great. So did I mention that they're coming out with a primer to go along with this foundation? But it wasn't in stores yet. But just so you know, there is going to be a matching primer with this, because from my 3 days of wearing it previously, I definitely think that in order to get the long wear out of this, it does need to be used with a primer. The third time that I used it was yesterday, and I was testing a chemical sunscreen that I had just gotten in this whole box of K-Beauty stuff that I bought. It's a Shiseido chemical sunscreen, and then I used the Hourglass primer, and then I applied it with the sponge, and I didn't put on very much. I didn't have any other makeup on because I was going for a hike with my daughter and my doggy. Then we went for this hike. It was like 88 degrees and 1000% humidity. You may have seen this in my Instagram story. I put that out and I checked in on the makeup up at the top of the hill, and oh my gosh, it looks so great. So I think that it definitely is kind of like waterproof and sweat-proof. It definitely performs so much better than Clinique Fit workout makeup that I tried a couple weeks ago that didn't even last through a workout. This stuff lasted. The only places that it's worn off are where the pads of my sunglasses were, and a little bit here, because of course I wore a baseball hat and I have the dent to show for it still. But other than that, I think the foundation still looks really, really good. I certainly did sweat a lot, and I don't look super greasy. So not only was it hot and humid out, but my daughter asked me to make her favorite meal because she left to go back to school this morning, and so it was lasagna. So I was in the kitchen like slaving away over a hot stove last night for a couple hours. Even after 11 hours and being in the hot kitchen and going for the hot hike, it really hadn't gotten much shinier in my T-zone. It was a little bit worn off on my lower face, but other than that, I felt like it was still in place at 11 hours, still looking decent for 11 hours. You can probably expect a good 7 to 8 hours of wear without a primer. If you add a primer and some setting powder, I think you can fully expect like 10 to 12 hours of wear. 24 is a little much. I don't really think it's going to last you for 24 hours by any stretch of the imagination. So okay, let's go ahead and do the other test. We've got the phone test to do. Where the heck is my phone? As usual, fail on the phone test. The flash photography test, let's see, camera. I think it looks good in pictures. So you know what, you guys, I really, really love this. I think it looks so beautiful on the skin, and I haven't had any problems with it as far as wear. It didn't break me out. It didn't make my skin feel dried out. It didn't make my skin look dry. It doesn't look like a cake of makeup, even though it is like high, medium to full coverage. So let's go ahead and do the pros and cons on this one. In the pros column is the beautiful semi-matte finish. It is buildable. It's comfortable to wear, it's lightweight to wear, it's non-drying, it looks good, it looks youthful, it doesn't settle into pores, it doesn't settle into wrinkles. It makes my skin look better than it is. Oh my gosh. I like it in all different kinds of lighting. It's easy to work with, it's easy to apply, it works well with other makeup. On the con side are the price, the high alcohol content, possibly the fragrance if you are sensitive to fragrances, and that it's not perfect on its own. You really do have to throw a couple of other types of makeup at it, like primer and setting powder, to get that long wear out of it. So, you know, if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to add anything else to it to make it be long wearing, then it could be not for you. But in general, I did love the look of it. I love the feel of it. This is going up there in the category of, Yes, that's right, people. Holy Grail. We've added another one to the Holy Grail category for mature skin. It's going up with the Chanel. I don't know if it's going to replace the Chanel. These one will be vying for top dog status. So I hope you found the video helpful and informative. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.